Good evening, everyone. I hope I've got some people joining me tonight for this is week 4 of my Facebook Live series, Principles of Good Health. So can't believe it's the end of January already, sort of 12th of the way through the year. So tonight I said I was going to talk about different dietary choices. Of course, everyone's talking about veganism at the moment, plant-based diets. There's veganary. So it sort of made me think about, well, you know, what is the healthiest diet? Is there such a thing as the healthiest diet? And I thought I'd just give you a few snippets of information from me and what I think is healthy eating and the pros and cons of different types of diets and what you need to be aware of when you're doing different things and trying out different diets. Hi there, please say hello, and remember, if you've got anything you want to say, any messages, any comments, any questions, do type them in because they definitely do show up on my screen here. So what I'm going to focus on are some of the pros and cons of different types of diets, mostly thinking about the nutritional status. I am aware of there are climate change issues, but that really isn't something I want to start talking about tonight. I think it's far more complicated than possibly some of the things we're hearing in the news. So, this is going to focus on the nutritional status. Hi, Rhiannon, how are you? Nice to see you again tonight. Just a little bit of background about me. I think I was about 20 when I gave up all meat altogether. And I did this for ethical reasons then. I don't think I was much of a meat lover at all. And I became what is now considered and called a pescatarian. I followed a pescatarian diet. And I did that for about 20 years. It was actually, just looked back when I was writing my notes, I think I was 40 when I reintroduced chicken and turkey into my diet. Probably not, maybe a little bit later than that. And actually, I reintroduced eating white meat when I started studying to be a nutritional therapist, and the more I learnt, and that's when I reintroduced it. Now, what I'm going to talk about tonight is different pros and cons to consider, and this isn't anything to do with what I think is, well, I may have my own beliefs about what is right and wrong personally. However, I appreciate everybody's beliefs, ethical beliefs or whatever it may be. My role when I'm with clients is to help them understand where their diets may not be suiting them and helping them get some information that's going to support their main reasons for coming to see me with their symptoms and their health conditions. And that's what I'll try and do. So let's kick off with the vegan diet. And this is probably where I've got most of my notes, actually. Vegan diets. So everyone's calling it a plant-based diet. I think I have a plant-based diet, and yet I eat some meat. So let's focus on this word vegan and a vegan diet. I think a lot of people are aware that one of the main concerns about being vegan is missing out on B12. Now, B12, why is this important? It's all very well saying, well, are you getting enough of B12? But why is it important? Well, B12 is needed for red blood cell production. So if we don't get enough B12, then this is one of the reasons why it can lead to anemia. It's really important for our nervous system and brain development. And one of the problems with B12 is it can take 5 years to show up a deficiency. And I think there's a lot of people going vegan who may feel great initially, but it can take 5 years to show up a deficiency. And there are people who've gone vegan and have promoted vegan diets and then stopped being on a vegan diet because it's making them unwell. Possibly one of these reasons is because I think it can affect our mental health status if we're not getting enough B12. And are we getting enough when we supplement it? Now, other reasons why we need it is for something called homocysteine. Now, you've probably never heard of this word. I'm going to keep it really, really simple, as I tried to do. Homocysteine, if you look at a lot of research around this word homocysteine, is considered to be a major contributor for heart disease and for Alzheimer's and for other health conditions. And in order to keep homocysteine levels down, and that's what's important, we need a number of B vitamins, and B12 is really, really important to keep homocysteine levels down. So I found a piece of research that showed that vegans are, where's my words here? They're way more likely to have a higher homocysteine level. If you looked into this, there's a scoring factor for, you can test this. I do testing for clients for homocysteine. And we need to keep that number as low as possible. And if it gets above 10, it's considered to be a risk factor for heart disease. And on some research, it showed that a vegan is more likely to have a homocysteine score of about 16. So I thought that was quite important. I think vegans do know you have to supplement B12. So that's really important to think about. And as I said, 5 years to show a deficiency, that's a really important thing to consider. Now, protein. Now, of course, we can get protein from plant foods. We can get protein from nuts. We can get it from seeds. We can get it from tofu. We can get it from pulses, from lentils. So, of course, we can get protein from a vegan or vegetarian diet. However, not all proteins are the same. We have what are called complete proteins and incomplete proteins. And animal proteins are complete proteins and vegetable proteins are incomplete. What this means is we have a number of amino acids. So proteins break down to amino acids, and we can't make, I think there's about 9 or 10 amino acids that as humans we cannot make. We have to get them from our diets. Now, animal proteins are what we call complete. So when we eat a piece of meat or a piece of fish, then we're going to get every one of those essential amino acids every time we eat them. And when we eat protein foods, they're not complete, which is why we have to put different protein foods together. For example, putting together pulses, putting together rice, then you're going to get more likely to get complete proteins. Yes, Sylvie, it is complex, and that's why I'm trying to throw some information out there that I hope is going to be of interest to people. It is complicated. So yes, you can get proteins, of course, from plant-based diets, but they're not complete and you have to work that much harder. The other thing in a vegan diet is the lack of essential fatty acids. We need our fats. I talk about this a lot. People get scared of fats, worrying about fats making us fat or fats and heart disease, but there are differences. So these essential, this word again, essential fatty acids, we can't get them, we can't make them ourselves, and we have to get them from our diet. And these essential fatty acids that we think of omega-3, but actually it's these words EPA and DHA that are really important. We get those from oily fish. There's a little bit in walnuts, and we can get omega-3 from flaxseed, but it's this conversion that's important, and the conversion to EPA and DHA is very, very difficult for us to do. We need to have all the cofactors to do that. And so we need to get it from oily fish. Why? Because oily fish is not only rich in omega-3, but rich in these EPA, DHA fats. So again, from a vegan, you're going to have to supplement B12, and you must supplement to get the EPA, DHA, which I know you can now get from algae-based products. Don't try and get it from flaxseed supplements or just from flaxseed in your diet. You need to supplement it with algae-based products that have and say they have the EPA and DHA in them. Moving on from the fats, then we need to think about fat-soluble vitamins. And so if we're not getting the fats in the diet from the vegan diet, although you can get, of course, fats from nuts and seeds, but making sure we get enough vitamins A and vitamin K and a little bit of D. And they're fat-soluble, so we only get them in the fats. Phytic acid. So I put a post out this morning, just thought make people aware, and I said that eating pulses and eating soya can make you low in iron, and you may be wondering why I said that. Now again, it's a little bit complex, but just to explain. So certain foods contain things that are known as mineral inhibitors, and pulses and soya, which is like a pulse, but it's the unfermented soya that we tend to eat in the Western diet, is rich in a thing called phytic acid. Now what that does is it binds to minerals in the gut and will take it out of the body. It will excrete it out of the body. So if we eat lots of pulses and we eat lots of non-fermented soya that's going to be richer in phytic acid, then it really doesn't matter how much vegetables and dark green leafy vegetables that we're eating that may be rich in calcium and iron, then we could be excreting them from the body. So this is why we may be low in iron. Of course, on a vegan diet, it's only non-heme iron that you're getting. We only get the heme iron from animal sources, and non-heme iron is much harder for the body to absorb. So it's another consideration. Just reverting back, actually thinking about the B12, we need B12 to make stomach acid, and we need stomach acid to absorb B12, and we need good levels of stomach acid to absorb our minerals. It gets complicated, so it becomes a little bit of a vicious circle to make sure we're getting enough B12 to make the stomach acid, and to be able to absorb our non-heme iron. So they're just some of the considerations and concerns about a vegan diet, which is why you have to work so much harder. I find it a little bit scary, but that's the food manufacturing industry for you, jumping on the bandwagon, because all you're hearing at the moment is how Greggs have got a vegan bake, and how I heard Asda, they've got some latest vegan foods. Well, the problem is that, these are highly processed foods. They're not natural foods. They're highly processed. They're full of chemicals. That's not what we're meant to be eating, and that's certainly not what a vegan diet's all about. Any of our diets, they need to be what I call whole foods. We need to be eating natural whole foods, what nature intended us to eat, not processed manufactured foods. So, be careful. You have to work harder. The good news, of course, if you're doing it properly, is your diet's going to be very, very high in vegetables. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope we're getting lots and lots of vegetables in the diet. I talk about having 10 portions of vegetables a day, and people find that really difficult to do. And I agree, it isn't easy. But we need to make sure that we're getting lots of vegetables. So if you're doing a vegan diet well, that's good news. You're going to be getting lots and lots of vegetables in your diet. So I think that's enough on the vegan diet. So moving on to vegetarian, we have some of the same concerns about B12, the EPA and DHA. It's a little bit easier to get the protein intake if you're eating eggs than you're eating dairy. I do have a little bit of concern about dairy for some people, because dairy can be mucus forming, and that can give rise to all sorts of other symptoms that I see in clients. So, but it is going to be a little bit easier to get the protein, but it can still be a bit hard to get the iron as well. It's pretty much the same pros and cons as vegans, but you should hopefully still have high amounts of vegetables. So that's one thing to think about. So moving on to pescatarian, as I said, that's what I did for 20 years. So again, if you're eating lots of fish, that's great. You've got more protein sources. White fish is a very easily digested protein to eat. But if you're eating having a pescatarian diet, you still need to have the oily fish. And of course, some people just don't like the oily fish, and that's one of the problems. And of course, you need about 3 portions of oily fish a week to get the right levels of those essential fats, EPA and DHA. So I think it's personally a healthier diet because it's going to be easier to get the right nutritional status. You don't have to work quite so hard. You don't have to think about it quite so much. But I said at the start that I started eating chicken when I started studying, and that was all because I thought I could be lacking B vitamins, not just B12, but other B vitamins as well. And so I reintroduced eating chicken and turkey. So moving on to a meat eater's diet, actually you can still be low on B12 even if you eat meat. And why is that the case? It's all to do with the absorption and having sufficient levels of stomach acid. But for most people, getting your B12 is going to be easier. There's been studies around meat and causing cancer, particularly colon cancer. And when you dig into these studies, the risk factor with the meat wasn't so much any meat, it was the type of meat in those studies. And the people that were more likely to get the colon cancers were having high amounts of more processed meats, probably cheap cuts of hams, which contain nitrites, salamis, more processed foods, probably more sausages, and not good quality meat. And when you dug into that, that was one of the problems. Of course, you have to choose your meats carefully. You want the best quality meat you can afford. You want to eat meats that's going to be more of the free range, so that the feed that they're having, if it's a cow, it's going to be more grass-fed rather than eating cereal grain. That way, the meat is going to be better quality fats. You also need to pay attention to the amount of vegetables you're consuming. So if you're going to eat meat, if you eat a lot of meat, then there is a risk of it being acid forming in the diet, but that shouldn't be a problem if what's on your plate has high levels of vegetables alongside it. Now, just to sum up then, because it's just gone 6:15 already, I think my key message is, as often when I'm talking about things, is around the everything in moderation, which is what I talk about so much. You need to have your meals balanced. We need to balance our meals so that a good 50% of the plate are vegetables. You need to have about a third of your plate is protein and fats, and a small 20% are your starchy carbohydrates like your rice and your pastas and your potatoes and your root vegetables. That's the best balance to have on your plate for keeping blood sugar levels stable and getting the right nutritional status. I believe that we're all metabolically different. We're all unique individuals, and what is going to be right for one person is not going to be right for another. One size really does not fit all. There are certain types of questionnaires you can do to look at your metabolic typing. I studied this, and my metabolic type was a mixed type diet, which meant I thrive on a mixed type diet of protein and carbohydrates. So some people may thrive really well on a very high carbohydrate intake, but others most definitely need a higher, denser protein type diet. And I think that's really important. And you will know yourself if you feel really well, if you do a higher carbohydrate, vegan type, vegetarian type diet compared to one that's got some meat in it. You will know yourself whether you're feeling really well. As I said, the vegan diet can take a long time before symptoms can manifest of not being well if you haven't worked really hard at maintaining what you're doing and having the right supplements alongside it. And I think your starting point is really important, because some people and some of the claims out there of people feeling better, I think you've got to look at their starting point on their diet. Has their diet started from more of a junk food diet and then they really switched and massively consumed vegetables? The chances are you're then going to feel a lot better by doing that. I think we need to look at the quality of what we're eating. Are we eating the best quality foods that we can afford? The best quality meats, the best quality fish. I wouldn't eat farm salmon, for example. I will only eat wild Alaskan salmon because the quality of that is going to be so much better than farm salmon. So it is about the quality of everything that we're eating as well, and putting in the time and effort and the know-how as to what we're doing. So again, I hope you found that really, really useful. I'd really appreciate it if you can share this for me. I'm trying to reach as wide an audience as possible by doing these talks. I'm going to carry on doing them. I'm really enjoying it, and I think the feedback I'm getting is you're enjoying it as well. Again, if you've got topics that you'd like me to talk about, please let me know. I'm thinking next week of maybe doing a Q&A. So if you've got questions, then please let me know your questions. Thanks, Sylvie. Oh, thanks, Amanda. Thanks for your comments. Do let me know if there's anything, if you've got questions that you're confused about. I'm wondering whether to do a Q&A next week. But I can't do 6 o'clock next Tuesday, so I can't decide. I'm travelling and I'm going to do a talk somewhere, and I can't decide whether I might do this on Monday at 6 o'clock next week. I think that's possibly what I'm going to do. I will share this with you and I'll let you know in good time if that's what I plan to do. So it won't be 6 p.m. On the 4th of Feb. I can't do that. Possibly going to do Monday 6 p.m. Have a good week, everybody, and look forward to speaking to you all next week. Have a good evening.